And then, of course, in this first interview, correct?
I did a boat wreck.
All right, and you described that. Do you remember what you said in this interview about the boat wreck?
Not specifically.
About specifically the other people involved in the boat wreck? You don't remember specifically? Do you remember specifically? I guess you said no.
I remember talking about the boat wreck, and I know that I talked about the boat wreck.
All right. Well, I'm going to play now from 1714.
Any direct threats between any of the people on the boat specifically, but I do think there's been a small amount of yip-yap between a couple of them, but not recently.
Okay.
What was the term you used for that? A small amount of yip-yap?
Yeah, and just to be clear, Mr. Waters, there was never, ever a point in time where I thought that the people that were involved in the boat wreck did this to Paw and Maggie.
Okay.
I've never thought that.
All right. I never thought that, but it's literally one of the first things that you said out of the 911 call.
Nah, that's not what I said. I never, ever, ever under any point in time believed that those kids that were riding in that boat or their parents or their families, I didn't believe that any of the families, the people that were involved in the boat wreck had anything to do with hurting Maggie and Paul.
Okay.
But I can tell you that at that time, and as I sit here today, that I believe that boat wreck is the reason why Paw and Maggie were killed.
Okay.
And I'm certain, I believe that.
It was random vigilantes, the 5-2 vigilantes, huh?
Now, what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that when Paul was charged criminally, there were so many leaks, half-truths, half-reports, half-statements, partial information, misrepresentations of Paul that ended up in the media all the time. And when I tell you the social media response that came from that was vile, the things that were said about what they would do to Paul, they were so over the top that nobody would believe anybody would get on social media and do that. But I believed then and I believe today, and when I tell you the social that media the wrong person response that came from that, the wrong person saw and read that. Things that were said about what they would do to Papa, they were so because I can tell you for a fact that nobody would believe anybody that the person or people who did what I saw on June the 7th, they hated Paul Murdaugh and they had anger in their heart. And that is the only reason that somebody could be mad at Paul like that and hate him like that.
All right, so we've got random vigilantes because of the boat wreck.
Now, I don't know that they're random vigilantes.
Well, you just said it wasn't the family or the kid, or the kids or the family of the other kids in the boat, right? So you're saying it's somebody off of social media, and you don't have any evidence of that, do you? You just believe that, and you're just telling that jury that as you try to explain the lie that you told for the first time yesterday. Isn't that right?
No, sir, that's not right.
It's not right. All right. Well, let me ask you a question then. So what you're telling this jury is that it's a random vigilante.
That's your
the 12-year-old, the 12-year-old 5-2 people that just happened to know that Paul and Maggie were both at Moselle on June 7th, that knew that they would be at the kennels alone on June the 7th, that knew that you would not be there, but only between the times of 8:49 and 9:02, that they show up without a weapon, assuming that they're going to find weapons and ammunition there, that they commit this crime during that short time window, and then they travel the same exact route that you do around the same time to Alameda. That's what you're trying to tell this jury?
You got a lot of factors in there, Mr. Waters, all of which I do not agree with, but some of which I do.
Well, it's interesting because the jury knew he lied and felt that his lies were just not good enough, and Murdaugh always seemed to blame someone else. Rich, what do you make of all the different stories and reasons the defendant gave? Would have it helped him to stick to just one story?
I think the stories are a big part of why the jury got where it is. Why the jury, by human nature, wants to figure out, well, if he didn't do this, who else did? And the idea of social media vigilantes storming the property, finding Paul at the kennel, killing his mom too. Why did they kill the mom if they were just mad at Paul? Why didn't they kill Alec? How was Alec on the property but didn't encounter these social media 5'2" assassins? None of it made sense. You have to throw it all out. And that clip we just watched, I think we have not given Creighton Waters enough credit for the cross-examination he did. It was a little too long. He spent a little too much time on the financial stuff. But he nailed Murdaugh on that question and answer about that theory not making any sense. And he nailed Murdaugh at the end about the kennel video lie. He had a lot of good moments in that cross-examination, and I think that resonated with the jury.
Well, at the end of the day, he got the job done. Casey, what do you think?
Well, just hearing his testimony, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. He had the nerve to point to half-truths. And then what really struck me is the fact that he had a reason why both Maggie and Paul were murdered. I mean, I always try to think, as a criminal defense attorney, I try to think as a juror as well. And if you have a reason, that's kind of eerie because that reason was your reason because you were the murderer. And it just goes back to the essential, money is the root of all evil. His love for money was the motivating force as to why he committed this, because he gave a reason, but that was definitely his reason.
All right, well, I'm keeping an eye on the courtroom feed, and we will go live to the sentencing hearing as soon as we can. But for now, we are going to take another quick break here on Law and Crime. Don't go anywhere. So much more from South Carolina next.
Welcome to Trainwreck Entertainment.
Joining us on Law and Crime. The sentencing hearing for convicted murderer Alec Murdaugh is expected to happen very soon down in South Carolina. The disgraced former attorney was found guilty last night in the shooting deaths of his wife Maggie and son Paul. We expect to hear victim impact statements before Judge Newman hands down that sentence, which could be up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While we wait to jump live, let's take a look back at some of the closing arguments, starting with the states. This is Prosecutor Creighton Waters.
No one knew who he was.
Daisy's part of the street. She's showing up.
No one knew who this man was. He'd avoided accountability his whole life. He had relied on his family name. He had a powerful family. He carried a badge and used that authority. He lived a wealthy life. But now finally, he was facing complete ruin. His father, who he idolized,
Oh, my shirt's breaking up.
who I worked with,
The red one wasn't. Why did you change?
Because I'm red.
was dying,
My
his
yellow is
son
breaking up too. We need.
was facing
That needs to. The lights were just
charges
fine
for the
and
boat
nothing was
case. He was
breaking
facing
up.
a civil action that not only could potentially ruin
Struggle
him, but
Stream and First
expose
Stream,
the
welcome
reality of what
everybody.
he'd been doing for
I am
years.
Polish Lucy. This is Paula Paula.
He had an opiate addiction.
Hey,
the
how's it
entire
going out
illusion of
there?
his life
We're
was
about to
about
look
to
at
be
something,
altered. He couldn't live for that.
it's well
He's the
deserved
kind of person
and-
for which shame
Something that
is an extraordinary
happens
provocation.
all the time in the United States, but I'm sure.
Shame
Not
is an
covered in this way.
extraordinary provocation.
Are we live?
His ego couldn't
Yes.
stand that.
No way.
Yeah. We're live the whole
And he
time
became a family annihilator. And I was thinking,
because we were testing everything, and then we had to make sure the mic, because the mic dropped. It was like, God damn,
Yeah.
that Struggle Stream is first one. Is Struggle
We
Stream.
need to turn the volume off on that thing then.
people who get the last word in this courtroom are y'all.
But he wanted me to test to make sure that it.
And a lot of witnesses have testified over the last 6 weeks, but there's a couple
Can you hear us on there, Marcus?
that never get to testify
Like, comment, subscribe, help us build this baby up.
that are
Where's the
important. And
email
that's
at?
common sense
I want to get our logo up here in the
and
corner.
human nature.
We're not doing anything right now, Paul. You can get the logo after.
And there's
I'm
two
not
more
doing anything when this is
that don't
about
get
to
to
start. You got your
testify.
ass up an hour late.
Look at this.
We couldn't bring
Don't
you
tell
any
me I was supposed to
eyewitnesses
wake you
because
up.
they were murdered. But common
Nobody
sense,
came to my trailer
human
and told me,
nature
"Hey,
can
you're on."
speak on behalf of Maggie.
You don't have an agent here,
When you look at
and no
this,
one's here to coddle
Mr.
you.
Tom.
I gotta change this shirt.
Common sense and human nature,
All right. In the meantime,
Can speak
let's
for them.
film our beautiful dog,
and they deserve a voice.
Daisy.
Daisy, you're on.
Say hello.
Daisy,
Say hello to everybody. No, stay there,
Everything
baby.
he
Stay
did
there. You're on
was
camera.
meant to try
Now
to
you're off
frustrate
camera. Everybody can see your
forensics
big
as a lawyer
ass.
and a prosecutor with the two guns and the manufactured alibi, and not taking his phone down to the scene,
Carter, what
deleting
you
call
doing?
logs, making short phone calls, bringing up the boat case, moving Maggie's phone, changing clothes, looking at Paul's phone, calling Rogan.
Oh, I have to say this
Trying
one
to call
shocked
Rogan.
me. 'Cause everybody, all the legal experts.
One
were
man
saying
controlled this crime scene initially.
there's no way he
And that
would
was
be found
all.
guilty. There's just no way that evidence. The scenes were mucked up.
But there were some things he couldn't control.
SLED, which is the South Carolina Law Enforcement.
And we brought those to you.
And throughout these closings,
Everybody
basically
dropped
what
the
Creighton
ball.
Waters was trying to point out was that he had no problem lying to those close to him. And everything he did was for one person, the person he loved most
shoot,
and
I-
wanted to protect.
If I go
And
this
that
way,
was
I'm gone,
himself.
so-
Would you agree,
We
Rich
need to
Jones?
back up a little bit.
Oh, I totally agree. That was definitely the theme of the
That's all
prosecution.
right, we'll get that
I just
part.
want to take a second.
wanna
I
make
want
sure
to
everything
commend
else is
all of the
working, 'cause I
lawyers
know
in this
nothing.
case. That closing was great. The defense closings were great.
Hello, everybody. I am a
The-
dumbass
all
with a
the four
smartphone.
prominent lawyers in this case were tremendous.
Thank God for
They
the smartphone.
communicated to the jury.
If it was-
They struck a
my
good
husband said
balance
the only thing I
between
should
the
own is a
data in
smartphone.
the
I shouldn't own a
case
computer
and the
ever.
emotion of the case, and they used
need
both
to get that chair out of the
effectively.
way.
You know, only one side can
What chair?
win, but this was an
that's
outstanding
blocking
work
this
by
off
some
right here.
very good trial lawyers.
Well, as you just heard, Creighton Waters using the connection of common sense and nature. Kesia, did that resonate with this jury?
Absolutely, because
talking about the
every
great
juror
chair?
wants to feel empowered, and he gave them that.
Paul,
And I
this
was
ain't the
comparing opposing
time.
Arguments with the defense and
But the
prosecution.
struggle stream will
Now,
be
the
worth
first
it
half
with your
of
crazy ass in
prosecution,
the
our
back.
closing arguments moved
This
rather
thing's gonna
slowly,
pick that up.
but it was the rebuttal that got me because I'm looking at the defense attorney and he's reading from a script. He wasn't given that eye-to-eye connection. Even if you were
All right.
resonating with one juror,
I
hoping
know where it
to
is.
the jury, because for me,
Huh?
there's no way
On that
I
mic,
saw
Paul.
this to be a
That
not
mic
guilty
has
verdict. I was thinking
individual
either hung
back
jury
There's a
here.
volume mic
or,
control right
you know,
here.
guilty verdict.
Is this for better, Marcus?
It just felt to me that he didn't believe in his case, and it was just trying the case and doing what you have to do. But that's what it was.
It's got different patterns on here to switch to. I don't know.
That's why I wanted to
And then all these people who knew Murdaugh all their lives and worked with this man day in and day out.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Now was good.
Is it too high?
Opportunity to view him and listen to his
Yeah, it's
testimony.
fine.
How's this? I'm trying to get rid of the yellow lines.
He lied to the people he loved most, and he's lying to
Is this any better? Why? We're trying to get this thing right.
And I believe that was his swaying decision.
Are we louder than they are?
Very well said there.
Shasha, you're not a techie. Shut
Go
up.
to the defense closing
Marcus, can you hear me over them?
Griffin speaks to all the questions about the night of the murders that haven't been answered yet.
In this case, on June 7th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh called 911, and Officer Deputy Green and then followed by other deputies rolled up on the scene. And he is standing on his property. His wife and son
It's that much of a delay?
dead.
Motherfuckers show up late to the goddamn show, and he's gonna talk to me about this.
He's within yards of him, and
He's gonna show us.
he just put a shotgun down. He just put a shotgun down. And what would that look like? 90 out of 100 cases when an officer rolls up, it would look like the person who had the
That sounds
shotgun,
good.
2 dead bodies, may have done it, probably have done it. Certainly is someone who should be strongly considered.
Is that even better light?
And all the officers in this case told you that. Deputy Rutland said, yeah, Alec Murdaugh was a suspect, but there are a lot of suspects out there.
No, in my
Everybody was a suspect. Fair enough.
It's recording. This can you stop? Of course we're gonna comment, but not while they're talking, because we want to hear what the judge has to say. Ooh, he's in an orange jumpsuit. No more suits.
It's not orange.
Well, it's orange on him because it matches everything on him.
Parties ready to proceed?
Could I at least get a jumpsuit that matches my
Oh my
hair?
From the
God, I
state.
can't believe this.
Mr. Waters.
Thank
No
you, Your
more
Honor.
suits. He's
We're
looking
obviously
like
here
a
in
real
the
prisoner
sentencing
now.
For the state versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh. Your Honor, I have prepared the sentencing sheets signed up. If I can hand those up to the clerk.
What? Watching you smoke.
Your Honor,
We are
very
not lawyers. We're
Quickly,
just playing
the
ones on
defendant has
TV.
no prior record, and the state has no victim impact people who want to speak at this time. But I will address the court briefly. And I don't need, Your Honor, to
So her family won't
repeat
speak
the evidence
out?
that Your Honor just heard for the past 6 weeks, but it is overwhelming, and it shows this man to be a cunning manipulator, a man who placed himself above all others, including his family, a man who violated the trust of so many, including his friends, his family, his partners, his profession, but most of all, Maggie and Paul. This is a very complicated situation, and I want to offer my condolences to the family that has suffered here. We have tried very hard to be respectful and sensitive regardless of what position any person took, because this family has suffered, and they've had to suffer in the public eye. And I want to offer my condolences to this family. I want to offer it for Maggie and Paul and Mr. Randolph, too, who I had the pleasure of working with on one occasion. But the reality remains is that despite all this attention, this case is about Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh, and I'm so thankful that the jurors gave them a voice. You heard about Paul. Obviously, there was the boat case, but you also heard him described as a fun-loving young man, a person who loved life, a person who would do anything for his friends, for anyone. And he was cut down as he was just starting to live his life. You heard about Maggie. You heard how sweet she was. You heard that she was a girl's girl who adapted to the outdoorsman life of her sons, how much she loved her sister and her brother-in-law and their children. And she was cut down in the prime of her life. Both of them, like everyone else, was unaware of who he really was. No one who thought they knew this man, no one who thought they were close to this man knew who he really was. And Your Honor, that's chilling. And I've looked in his eyes, and he liked to stare me down as he would walk by me during this trial. And I could see the real Alex Murdaugh when he looked at me. The depravity, the callousness, the selfishness of these crimes are stunning. The lack of remorse and the effortless way in which he lies, including here, sitting right over there in this witness stand.
He's going to live in torture.
Your Honor, a man like that, a man
crimes.
like this man, should never be allowed to be among free, law-abiding citizens again.
Well, he wasn't.
And I would submit to you that the only just sentence here to get justice for Maggie and Paul
I'd be
is the
sobbing
maximum.
if I was found guilty of
And that would
murder
be
I
2
didn't commit.
consecutive life sentences. Thank
I
you, Your
would be
Honor.
losing it.
There's no doubt in anybody's mind that he committed this.
You indicate that no one,
3
no
hours
victim would
celebration.
like to speak at this time. Would any victim like to speak at any time during these proceedings?
Your Honor, one of the things we did, and we did early on, obviously, as I just said, it's a very complicated situation, but we made the decision early on. We've had our victim advocate here who's been doing a wonderful job, regardless of the viewpoints of any individual family member, to provide aid and service to them, and we made that decision. I'm informed by our victim advocate that none of them wish to speak.
Wow.
The defense can
So
certainly
your
address
sister
that, but
was
that's
just
what
killed.
I'm informed, but they certainly
Your nephew
were
was
offered the
killed,
opportunity
and
as
you-
is required, and I want to commend
Still don't want to believe it.
our victim
Well,
advocate
they probably wouldn't
on
be
the
able to
excellent
keep
job
the
she
composure. They
did.
don't wanna-
It's a
in handling
blemish
this
on their
complex
family.
situation.
They're
But we
more
wanted to be
worried about
sensitive
the
too, because
name.
again, I am not. None of us are not mindful of the fact of the suffering
That's
of this
his.
family.
That's her family and his family back there. But it's her.
I noticed
sister
Sled Chief
back
Mark
there. It's her-
Keel is here.
Wow.
Would you like to address the court on any matters, Chief?
Yes, sir. Just to say, again, very proud of our agents, the work they've done, and proud of the partnership that we've had with the Attorney General's office as we've had for many years. And again, we're here to see justice is served, and we believe that. Thank you.
Thank you. For the defense.
Your Honor, Mr. Griffin and I would have no comment. The defendant would like to address the court, though.
Mr. Murdaugh.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Pawpaw.
Papa.
He'd
Thank
never
you, Your Honor.
called him
Thank you.
that, and all of a sudden, during no interview, during no police, nothing, he'd never called him Papa, which was his nickname. All of a sudden,
Anything
at the trial,
further?
he's calling him Papa. Trying to act like
I don't
this
think further
endearing
comment is
father.
necessary, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Murdaugh, if you'll come to the court for sentencing.
Get up there.
Instead of coming up and saying how much pain I've caused the people I love. I'm innocent of this murder, however, I have caused my family immense pain.
This has been perhaps one of the most troubling cases, not just for me as a judge, for the state, for the defense team, but for all of the citizens in this community, all the citizens in this state, and as we've seen based on the media coverage throughout the nation. You have a wife who's been killed, murdered, a son savagely murdered,
The son was
a lawyer,
shot in the chest, and then
a person from a respected family who has controlled justice in this community for over a century.
Shot him in the face.
Neck,
A person
and blew out his
whose
brains.
Oh yeah, that's right.
grandfather's
Lost his head.
portrait hang at the back of the courthouse that I had to have ordered removed in order to ensure that a fair trial was had by both the state and the defense. And I've sat through the trial. Not only have I sat through the trial, but also as the presiding judge of the state grand jury, sat through and participated in the issuance of search warrants of various sorts, bond hearings, and
He doesn't look like he cried
I've had
all
to
night.
consider many things.
Neither one of them do look like they were distraught.
And we have this case, and I'm also assigned to preside over 99 others, at least 99 other cases. Though testimony has come up regarding many of those other cases, I will not make any comment with regard to any other pending matter, as I have been assigned those cases as well. It's also particularly troubling, Mr. Murdaugh, because as a member of the legal community and a well-known member of the legal community, you've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various
Turn it back on.
occasions throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And you've engaged in such duplicitous conduct here in the courtroom, here on the witness stand, and as established by the testimony throughout the time leading from the time of the indictment and prior to the indictment throughout the trial to this moment in time. Certainly, you have no obligation to say anything other than saying not guilty. And obviously, as appeals are probably expected or absolutely expected, I would not expect a confession of any kind. In fact, as I've presided over murder cases over the past 22 years, I have yet to find a defendant who could go there, who could go back to that moment in time when they decided to pull the trigger or to otherwise murder someone. I have not been able to get anyone, any defendant, even those who have confessed to being guilty, to go back and explain to me what happened at that moment in time when they opted to pull the trigger, when they opted to commit the most heinous crimes known to man. In this case, qualifies under our death penalty statute based on the statutory aggravating circumstances of 2 or more people being murdered by the defendant by one act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. I don't question at all the decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct.
It's the South, after all.
Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled?
Tangled web, we weave.
Oh, what tangled web we weave. What did you mean by that?
Meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury because they've concluded that you continued to lie and lied throughout your testimony. And perhaps with all the throng of people here, they, for the most part, all believe, or 80, 90%, 99% believe that you continue to lie now when your statement of denial to the court. Perhaps you believe that it does not matter, that there's nothing that can mitigate a sentence given the crimes that were committed.
What do you think, life?
You know, a notice of alibi was filed in this case by counsel in November, and we conducted a hearing, pretrial hearing.
He should get the death.
I think the judge is going to give him death penalty.
He
if
claimed
if
to
he's-
have
if the
been
state is eligible for it.
someplace else at the time the crime was committed.
Well, it's so planned.
Then, after all of the witnesses placed you at the scene of the crime, at the last minute, or last minutes or days, you switch courses and admitted to being there. And then that necessitated more lies and continued to lie. And And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you and concluded that it'll never end. But within your own soul, you have to deal with that. And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you. I'm sure.
Haunt you.
And every night.
I'm sure. And they will continue to do so. And reflect on the last time they looked you in the eyes, as you looked the jury in the eyes.
Yeah, there's just.
Where did we go? Oh.
I don't know
Ryan, there's like
a person who's always been such a gregarious, friendly person.
Listen, if you're not guilty, you're crying.
Cause their life to be tangled
Nobody
in such
cries
a
over their
weave
sentences.
web,
Have you ever been sentenced for anything?
such a situation
I've
that
seen these things before.
yours.
No,
It's
try
funny
it in
to-
real life.
And it's so unfortunate because you had such a lovely family, such friendly people, and including you.
They let the kid become an alcoholic and never
Go
stop.
from that to this.
Did you see that? That was tragic. The mother too. They all drinking with him.
You know, your license to practice law has been stripped away from you. You turned from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer. And it's almost, it's really surprising that you're waiving this right at this time. And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything. But you have the opportunity to do so.
And I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Pawpaw.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another
I think
person.
he wanted to eliminate his son because of the accident.
I've seen that before.
Right.
And the millions it was going to cost him.
The person
I
standing
think the
before
wife
me
just
was not
showed
the
up.
person who committed the crime.
Right, that's right.
Though it's the same individual.
That's why I think he had already put down one gun and he had to grab another. That's why two guns were
We'll leave that at that.
This is the only thing that makes sense.
Before announcing sentence on these cases, with regard to all of the other pending cases, are any of them here in Colleton, or I'm sure some of them are?
Yes, sir.
Half of them, or?
I don't
We're
have that in
talking
front of me,
about-
but there are a substantial number of charges here. There's
Oh,
some
it's financial crimes.
Buford, Allendale, there may be others that I'm not thinking of right now.
We might have worn out our welcome here in Colleton. They have been, and I'll take this opportunity to thank Sheriff Hill and all of the court officials and really everyone I've met and dealt with while here in Colleton County. Just been great. But without any delay, we're going to schedule some of the other matters. I know Mr. Harpootlian's scheduling is complicated, and you've sacrificed quite a bit to be able to be here defending Mr. Murdaugh, as well as the Attorney General's office, with all the other many things and obligations you have. And to be able to have the Attorney General here, Alan Wilson, for the period of time that he's devoted to being here along with everyone else, it's been quite a sacrifice but there are other victims whose cases deserve to be heard. And this case has jumped some of those other cases. Perhaps jumped it because of this case resulting in an assault on the integrity of the judicial system in our state, law enforcement in our state. Even during this trial, the law enforcement has been maligned for the past 5 or 6 weeks by one who had access to the wheels of justice, to be able to deflect the investigation. And as the evidence is pointed out in this case, the looming storm that Mr. Waters talked about, I can just imagine on that day, June 7th, when a lawyer is confronted and confesses to having stolen over $500,000 from a client, and he has a tiger like Mark Tinsley on his tail pursuing discovery in the case involving the death of Mallory Beach, and having a father, for the most part, on his deathbed. I could imagine, or really can't imagine, but I know it had to have been quite a bit going through your mind on that day. But amazingly, to have you come and testify that it was just another ordinary day, that my wife and son and I were out just enjoying life. Not credible, not believable. You can convince yourself about it, but obviously you have the inability to convince anyone else about that. So if you made any such arguments as a lawyer, you would lose every case like that. Cases you will never have an opportunity to argue anymore, except perhaps your own as you sit in the Department of Corrections. Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for the term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. Under the statute involving possession of a weapon during a violent crime, there is no sentence where a life sentence is imposed on other indictments.
So he can't sentence.
That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections.
No emotions. No
And officers
crying.
may carry forth on the imposition.
His son. Look at him. All he uses red, and he's mad. God, I didn't intend to say it like that. Red head, red, and red in the face. Oh, he looks so angry. Did you see his face?
With the kid?
Yeah, just.
Yes, sir.
Look at him. He's just.
Yes, sir.
That fast they got him the hell out. He didn't do any. How can you say nothing?
Well, you know, the sad part of the whole thing is they let that kid go downhill and they did absolutely nothing about it.
Why the Netflix broke
Totally
it down.
out of
I'm glad you
control.
watched it because the Netflix special really broke it down. He got to do whatever he wanted. All the repercussions, all the things he did, never paid for them. But now they could sue the family of Mallory, could sue. The family of the housekeeper could sue. And now they've reopened the murder investigation into that young gay boy because they think that Buster, this one, was in a relationship with him. And the last person to see him alive was Buster and his brother. And then all of a sudden that kid was the one in the middle of the road with a head wound, but no trauma to the body.
Uh-huh.
So, but the mother enabled it too.
Right. Yeah, nobody stopped.
truly did.
They all thought that they were above the law and that they had no.
Before we
power.
adjourn,
And anything, and the kid was getting in trouble
order was
constantly, and the counselor got
issued
him out of trouble.
concerning maintaining the juror's identity being anonymous. That order was issued, and for the most part, it's been complied with, except for the jury leaving the courtroom yesterday, or not the jury, but the defendant leaving the courtroom while the jury is still seated.
Did he threaten the jury on his way out?
Protecting the identity of the jurors is certainly extremely important during the course of a trial to ensure that no one makes contact with the jury or attempts to influence the jury. Jurors have a right to continue that privacy beyond their jury service, but they're not obligated to do so. And it would not surprise me if jurors choose to come forward and to speak, and they're encouraged to do so if that is their desire. I have no problem whatsoever with the jurors unmasking themselves and speaking freely with the media because they have undergone a life-changing experience as it relates to many of them.
You're gonna need therapy.
And some of them are here
murder
now.
photos. Oh.
And I want them to know that should anyone attempt to harass them or annoy them, please let me know and I will address the issue. Secondly, there's a complaint now regarding the posting of autopsy photographs or photos that came from within the courtroom. It's based on the direction of the photographs. It did not come from the audience. It came somehow from within the well of the court.
Who do you think leaked the murder?
The parties have requested an investigation of that.
Or his kids or his family?
I have my hands full doing my job, and I don't attempt to conduct any investigations beyond the conducting of a
They
trial.
gonna investigate who leaked
But to the
fuck
extent that
murder
law
photos.
enforcement
Well, his attorney
decides to
wanted
review
leaks.
that, that's would be a responsibility of law enforcement. Yes. And
Somebody got paid for the photos.
I'm sure they did. But you're risking your whole life. Your
of
whole
course,
career.
one of the reasons we've
Yeah,
sought
he risked
to
his whole career killing him.
Because he was
seal
above the law for
graphic
100 years.
photos
From 1920
because
to
the parties have a
2020.
right to privacy and a right
Family
to
ran this whole, like, 3
those matters
trillion.
not being publicly disclosed. If anyone has heard about the recent settlement that Kobe Bryant's, another sports analogy, Kobe Bryant's wife just made with Los Angeles County and others out there over certain disclosures of information involving the death of Kobe Bryant, liability can be substantial. And,
So letting them know
it's a
because
risk for the most part,
Vanessa Bryant
not that's not worth taking. So we'll let everyone judge themselves accordingly with that regard. Aside from all that, our business is done here in Colleton County. And I get to use my gavel one or few times during this trial and order that court be adjourned. Sine die.
You know, I have to give respect to this judge who just lost his son on January 3rd and did not step down and really did a great job. Composed. Just unbelievable.
Where's the kid?
The kid looks like he
split.
He split.
He's gonna go get drunk on the boat.
That's the older one. The younger one was the one that he killed. That's the one that was on the boat.
Right.
So
obviously.
But this one is the one that plagiarized in I don't know if it was law school, but I know it was South Carolina University. He plagiarized something, and they kicked him out of school. And so you heard the recordings from the Netflix special where they talked about all of the ways to get him back in school. And then he's like, well, did you give him his money? He's like, yeah, he got plenty of money to take care of this. They were trying to pay.
What month is the sign cancer?
July, I think.
Yeah.
Right after you. Yeah, right after Gemini. So, look at his attorney. His attorney is such an asshole.
Is he with their firm? No, nobody in the firm wanted to get involved in this, right? They all had his guts.
No, they had to split from him. They lost the guy had to take out I think $10 million in loans so far to pay back all the settlements he stole. I mean, how did they not notice that much money gone? That to me is absurd because he was doing it for so many years. And then he had this relationship with one of the bankers.
He would collect the money and not report it.
Right, but not only report it, he would tell everybody else that no, he actually told people he put it in investments for them. It's in special accounts for them. He structured it for them. All of it was bullshit. As a matter of fact, he was taking loans out against the structure that he did set up with a friend of his who was a
major
banker.
crime right there. It's supposed to go in an escrow account.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is that's his next trial is the financial crimes, but it doesn't matter if he got life because what are they going to add?
Well, they want to
seal the coffin.
Civil crimes.
Well, they've already remember when OJ was found not guilty, the civil charges started right away, and everybody won. Everybody won. So everybody was saying this little prosecutor didn't do a good job, and I thought he did. That's the guy in the darker blue suit. So I thought of the one up front. Daisy, silent but deadly. So what did you think of after the boat crash, when you saw the Netflix special, after the boat crash, what did you think of when the parents were still waiting to find the body of the child, and then all of a sudden the police told them nobody can cross this line, and all of a sudden the grandpa and the mother showed up at the accident site and crossed the lines and were able to get in areas. So what they said is they were hoping not to find a body. And honestly...
Why were they hoping not to find a body?
Because nobody know crime.
Oh. Yeah, well, it's not that big a river.
But you can be washed out to this ocean, so the river connects, all of that is like Everglades, swampy. But that they're
Well,
like,
this is flowing water, and it's rather clear. It isn't like the Everglades.
right. What I'm and that, but it's a
The
little,
Everglades, you just sink down into the mud and get absorbed in it, or an alligator gets you in most cases.
or python at this point because
Yeah,
they
right.
set them in there. I've been watching the python hunting. Now he was talking about hogs and hogs and hogs and how much they killed hogs. It sounded to me like Paul really liked to kill animals. He just liked to shoot things, skin things, kill things. What's his fascination? And then how about the part where his girlfriend was with him?
Well,
And
the biggest crime of this whole thing is that they never took care of Paul and got him through rehab because they didn't want that blemish on the family.
well, now they gotta.
You know, all his friends and everything noticed such a big change in him and how he was like unbearable when he was drunk on his ass. And
You know, the comments, but somebody has said that and heard that from their parents when they say, your father doesn't even make enough money to feed your family.
right.
That comment to me was just so telling of the truth of what kind of family they were. They looked down on
Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections
And
So this
why
is
didn't
a
he explain
replay,
why he wasn't
everybody.
giving him the death penalty?
in the murder of
I
your
think that in
wife,
South
Maggie
Carolina,
Murdaugh.
they
I sentence you for a term
stopped
of the
the
rest
death
of your natural
penalty.
life.
And that just happened moments ago. Convicted murderer and former attorney Alec Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison this morning. Hi, everyone.
So now they're breaking it down, but I'm just still baffled by how fast the jury came back, which means
I know. How
which
many hours was
means
it? 3.5
hours. 3 hours. They said that. Here's what I think. They heard so much bullshit and so much conflicting testimony from him over the course of all the investigations that the
Well, he
police
had no
did.
credibility whatsoever in what
Right.
he was saying.
It shot out his credibility, and they weren't buying anything he was selling, no matter
Well,
what
when
he
you're
said.
already guilty of such, I would consider the theft as much a heinous crime as the murder. Well, not as much, but it's pretty bad that for years and years he's ripping off his clients.
At the last minute, or last minutes or days, you switch courses and admitted to being there.
What are you doing?
And then that necessitated more lies and continue to lie. And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you. And
I really thought that it was going to go
concluded
into
that
deliberation
it'll never end.
yesterday, and
but
sometime
within your
today
own soul,
they'd come
you
back
have to
with a
deal with
verdict.
that.
I thought guilty myself,
And I know
but
you have to
I have to
3
admit,
hours is pretty.
see Paul and Maggie during the
I
night
have
time
to
when you're
admit
attempting
that
to go to sleep. I'm
the
sure they'll come and
police,
visit you.
the investigators,
Sure.
everybody mucked up the crime scene because they were trusting of
Sure.
him and who he was, and they
And they
didn't
will
want to
continue
be
to do so.
intrusive on this family because of its
Reflect
power.
on
It
the
had
last
nothing to
time
do
they
with anything
looked you
else.
in the eyes, as you look the jury in the eyes. I don't know person who's always been such a gregarious, friendly person and cause your life to be tangled in such a weave web, such a situation that yours have spun into, and it's so unfortunate because you had such a lovely family of such friendly people, including you, and to go from that to this.
And with that, I'm joined live by South Carolina local and law and crime correspondent Gigi McKelvey, who has been covering this trial for us from day one. Gigi, you were just in that courtroom for that verdict. It gave me goosebumps watching it in the studio here. What was it like in the courtroom? What did you see?
It was a very, very heavy air in there. We were sitting on the front row, just kind of diagonal from the family, and were able to watch their expressions, mostly emotionless as far as no tears. His sister sometimes shaking her head in disagreement with the judge when he was talking to Alec. But very powerful things in a respectful way to me from Judge Newman to Alec, who it almost was like, if that's going to make you, if anything is going to make Alec Murdaugh feel bad, it's the gentle way that he essentially told Alec, you are a liar and you continue to lie. And really powerful when he said, it might not have been you, it could be the monster you've become.
Why he did everything he could to.
Yeah, but they're saying they had a problem with this judge for a long time, and I don't know if there was some bad blood or maybe they weren't the,
Well, they probably wanted a different judge because they had somebody that would play along with them, probably.
Well, yeah, considered on the fact that the judge said he had to remove all of the pictures. I mean, I'm absolutely baffled that, to the extent that, okay, so his grandfather and great-grandfather were solicitors for the state, and they have their paintings in a building, right? That's a small county, small town, very proud of that. So, but to have to remove his family's legacy out of the building because he's being charged with the murder of his family is like, oh my God, what happened? And I think he was also a spoiled, rotten kid. He also got away with a lot because he was an alcoholic himself. He drank all the time, and when all the videos they showed on Netflix, every party they showed, alcohol was everywhere.
Right.
Mother, father, children. All the kids were served alcohol. So, and they never got in trouble for that. You and I serve alcohol and we're going to jail. And that's the kind of crap that people get sick and tired.
And they were giving alcohol to their friends.
Yes. And giving them keys to a boat and boathouse and have parties there. And that's where the whole party started before the boating accident. They started at the boathouse, which is why the attorney wanted to sue all the policies.
And why did they ever leave the oyster roast in the first place?
Had they not left, yes, it would be a very different story. But I am still baffled
There's a lot of whys. It's like, why did anybody get back on that boat after he was already obviously totally stupid and turned it a little timid?
And that's a decision that those kids have to live with for the rest of their lives. I think that little girl's, Mallory's boyfriend, I think his name was Anthony, he was just devastated at the sight. You could hear him screaming at him, "You're laughing right now."
Yeah, right.
Like, my
Paul was laughing when they...
Yeah, he's calling his family. Police did not...
Grandpa,
did you notice that...
Randolph, come save me again. Yeah, I was just in trouble last week, but come do it again this week.
He was in trouble constantly. I think the kid was crying out for help.
He was. Kids don't really like to be able to get away with stuff. It bothers them. They feel guilt over it, and then they keep, how far can I push this before they finally do something?
My parents will just... Kids want attention in that way. They
want guidance.
Yes. No kid wants to just hear, "Oh no, nothing.
You're okay.
You're the greatest." And your kid is not. Parents know. I'm so tired of parents pretending they don't know. I had a relationship with my dad where if I did something wrong in school, I'd call him right away. If I called him, my father knew I didn't do it. If the teacher called him first, he knew I was guilty. That's how it worked. But I had that trust with my dad. I was scared of him. So you want to Because I don't know if they're reviewing that or if they're just talking. No, that's our microphone. You got to go over here.
This man.
Well, you actually go right here is where you should be doing it.
Walk out of that courtroom. It was a tan jumpsuit. Wasn't so orange as we all expected. It was a tan jumpsuit. I want to clarify that. Gigi, thank you so much for all your.
It looked like an orange suit that's been washed so many times that it washed the orange out of it. Okay, and it just left the base material.
Everybody else for the
so much more to discuss about the sentencing hearing that we just saw. Stay with us.
No, this is just devastating.
Surprised you didn't get the death penalty.
But I have to look it up if in South Carolina it is something you get. So
Yeah, probably in the last 6 months they outlawed it.
Wow, I am absolutely just.
Don't do it over here. Do it over there. This is the controls.
Here, expert.
These are the controls.
Who got up, took a shower, and sat down while I've been doing
and I
this.
look
And
marvelous.
my husband sat here for hours.
Well,
I don't care how marvelous you look. You sound like an asshole still. And next time you come out of bed,
wait until I get
with
drunk.
Your troll hair, I'm gonna take a picture and post it online. That's gonna be your new dating profile pic.
And your email isn't even set up on this.
Yeah, well, good luck. You're supposed to do everything.
I'm not supposed to set
we
up
talked
the email.
about this. So I'm Jaja. Polish
And
Lucy.
I'm Paulo Apollo, and this is Trainwreck Entertainment, and this is perfect way to start off a Trainwreck Entertainment channel because this is a real train wreck.
And so are we. We're struggle streaming. Hopefully you can hear everything. This is our first one, so.
First of many. And if they could ever get Young Thug
back.
processed.
Oh my God, there's another one that took a plea and then the judge threw the book at him. Oh my God, I don't know if Young Thug's got a chance at this point. That's why I think they're stalling. I think
them dealing drugs in the middle of the courtroom had something to do with the delays.
Well, that definitely, but I think at this point, I'm going to be honest with
Allegedly.
you, no witnesses, no case, and I hate to say this, but so many times in cases like this, especially, when there's a RICO case against the mob, how many people disappear? How many of the witnesses end up disappearing?
Well,
unless the feds have them and they're guiding them and they're protecting them. It's really just going to be sad because he still has a lot of loyal people that are crazy enough to do crazy crap like that where but just remember so I don't know about Young Thug. I know that Courtney, I don't remember her last name, the OnlyFans trial should be starting. And
well, I can't wait until Georgia, our home state, decides to take on the former president.
I wonder.
Actually, New York's going to be first. They're going to be doing that case of defamation of character on that woman that he allegedly took advantage of.
But I don't know if those are going to be televised.
Oh,
that's
I hope so.
the only thing.
Well, we can still cover them after
they fight back on it being televised. That's like I told you. That's
why wouldn't it be televised? Everything else has been televised.
Well, because either the plaintiff or defendant can fight for
circus.
Yeah, it is. It's completely. But either the plaintiff or defendant can choose. Or can beg the judge and argue that they don't want cameras in.
Yeah, well, New York, I don't think is going to be real sympathetic.
But New York hasn't had anything on camera. We didn't see Michael Cohen's on camera. We didn't see none of it. It was just sketches.
Oh, there wasn't any Cohen?
No, there was no trial of Cohen. The only thing Michael Cohen was in front of Congress or the Senate. When he testified, he didn't have anything.
And we're back.
welcome back to Law and Crime. We have been live in Walterboro, South Carolina for the sentencing hearing for convicted murderer Alec Murdaugh. The disgraced former attorney was found guilty of the murders of his wife and son last night. And not even 24 hours later, he was sentenced to life in prison. We might be able to take you live to a press conference soon, but while we wait, I want to take a look at some of the comments
that it came
Judge
back
Newman
that
had
quick
to
and he's
say
already
to Murdaugh
sentenced.
before handing down
We were
his
just hearing
sentence
closing
early.
arguments 2 days ago.
Remind me of the
I know.
expression you
Yesterday.
gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled?
Tangled web, we weave.
When
Oh,
we
what
practice to
tangled
deceive.
web we weave. What did you mean by that?
Meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
So, isn't that a really good spokesman?
And the question is,
I
when
lie,
will it
I
end?
continue to lie.
When will it end?
It's surprising that
And
this man right in
it's
front of
ended
us
already
was
for
one
the
of the
jury
best
because
trial
they've
attorneys.
Concluded
Or
that
personal
you
injuries in
continued
the
to lie
state.
and lied throughout your testimony.
I know, he hasn't ever said anything that was really impressive.
Perhaps with all the throng of people here,
I gotta
they,
look back for interviews that
for the
he's
most
never
part,
done
all believe,
before
or
any of the
80,
publicity.
90%, 99% believe that you
There's
continue
gotta
to
be
lie
something.
now when your statement of denial to the court. Perhaps you believe that it does not matter. That
This
there's
one hurts the
nothing
soul because
that can mitigate
Paul may have been a little
sentence
asshole, but he didn't
given the
deserve to
crime-
die by, especially by the hand of
crimes
his
that were
father.
committed.
Jail, he
You know,
deserved.
your license to
A
practice
rehab
law
he should have been in.
stripped away from
The
you,
mother, of course, no one
turned
deserved
from
to
lawyer
die.
to witness.
The mother is upsetting because
And
when you
now,
watch the documentary and you see all the
have an
drinking
opportunity
she
to
did
make
with the
your
kids,
final appeal
with all the friends, you see them all
as
in
a-
there, all
as
have
an
drinks
ex-lawyer.
on the boat. They're all drinking,
And, it's
and to
almost,
me, it's like
it's
you're
Well,
really
the
surprising.
mother.
if you're gonna let them have a party at home, you
you're
might let
waiving
them
this
drink,
right
but you don't let them take off
this
and go
time.
on the boat. That's like going out and
If
driving
you
a
have to
car,
do so,
and he did drive
it's
cars.
on you.
How many cars
I'm
did he
not
total?
compelled.
Right, the car he flipped over, and then what happens? The family
you have
shows
the
up and starts
opportunity
taking
to
the
do so.
guns out of the truck,
Right.
and they're
Before
mad
they
at.
even ask anybody how they're doing.
Yes,
Are you
and-
okay? Are you okay? No. We got to get the guns out of here.
But I'm
Yeah,
innocent.
when the
I would
girlfriend
never-
said
Oh
they
yeah.
did,
Listen,
they were
this is
upset at
very
me.
Hurt my
convincing
wife,
right
Maggie,
here.
and I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Pawpaw.
He wasn't your
And
son.
it might not have been
Pawpaw.
you.
He was your
It
son.
might have
Paul.
been
You didn't call him Pawpaw.
Yeah, another lie.
the monster you become when you
Call him
take
Pawpaw.
15,
It'll
20,
be a lot
30,
more
40, 50,
endearing.
60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
The person
man.
standing before me was not the
I'm
person
sorry.
who
I
committed
think
the
he
crime.
embezzled that money.
Though it's the same
that money
individual.
is hidden somewhere in offshore accounts. There's at least 30, 40 million dollars.
We'll leave that at that.
Well, I want to find
Quite
out
the
that landing
exchange this
strip, what
morning
was really
between
going
Judge
on
Newman
there,
and
too.
Alec Murdaugh and
Oh,
George
right.
Powell.
There's
Planes.
drugs coming in,
This hour.
prostitutes.
Also, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Matt Mangino. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
gentlemen,
that one
for
got
being
me
here with
too,
me. Matt,
Greg,
I'm going to start
because,
with
like, my
you
aunt
here.
had a landing
We
strip
spoke
in,
about briefly
Washington State.
about the
Or my
exchange
uncle.
there. What are your thoughts
And,
on
but he
that
worked for
exchange and that
Alaskan
tangled
Airlines. He
web
flew for them for
conversation?
30 years, and then he would fly
What's
from
really interesting, I mean, Judge Newman
to the
has
airport
really,
in the small plane because he was
taken
about
control
2
of
hours
this
away from
trial.
Seattle. So
The
he would take his
manner
little
in
plane
which,
to the airport
this
and
whole
get in his
case
big plane.
Sort of unfolded. Things went.
But he certainly
very
wasn't
quickly.
bringing in
He was
dough.
very precise in the rulings that he made, and I think he showed today again very quickly. 16 hours after the verdict, in what was a relatively
You know
short
what I want
sentence
you to
when you're
do?
thinking about somebody who's
Because now it's
committed
bothering
2
me when
murders
I
and
hear them
convicted of
talk
committing,
about it.
2 murders. And
I would think about
you know, he
80% of the
spoke from
commentators
heart and spoke
on this case
from what he knew
were
personally.
positive
Now,
it was
this
going
is
to
a
be a
sentence.
hung
He
jury
can
or a
talk
mistrial
about
or
his
not
Really?
guilty.
Why?
personal observations
Because the
and
evidence
the
was so
Alex,
mucked up because
Murdaugh that he knew
the police didn't
before
collect
this,
anything
Alex,
because they
Oh, right,
treated
right.
him like a
saw in his
special
courtroom. And he
person.
was
What was the
straightforward. He
evidence that
honest.
stuck?
And he gave him
The
ultimate
phone.
punishment that
He
can
lied
receive
about
under
being
the
at the kennels, and his son had a
circumstances. I think it says a lot
Snapchat
about, the
with his
gentleman.
voice on it, and
Yeah,
he
for sure.
admitted
I
it
mean,
on
I
the
think
stand.
the word
The
that
day
I
he
would
got on the
use
stand and sealed his coffin, he shouldn't have testified.
He shouldn't have. I know.
If
that
he
didn't-
didn't testify, I think he would have got
Murdaugh
off.
didn't talk down
But he
at
couldn't.
him,
The
but,
arrogance,
basically stated the
the
truth.
bravado,
Genuine and eyewitness
I have
official.
to tell them.
And
I
there was no
have
doubt
to
going
talk
into the
about it.
sentencing hearing
I'm
about what the
gonna.
sentence was going to be. The man
I'm
murdered
gonna
his
read.
wife and
I'm
And his
gonna
lawyers were telling him,
redeem
no,
our
no,
name.
no, right?
The maximum
I'm
sentence
sure
was his
it was
life
a
in
point
jail.
of contention
As the
because,
judge made the point, he could have- the
like I said, about
prosecution could
80%
have
of the people
pursued the
said
death penalty, but they
he was
didn't.
going to be found not
So he
guilty.
was gonna
And then
get
when
the
he
maximum.
when he
But I tell you,
testified,
if
it was
Alec
like,
Murdaugh was gonna
why would
say
he
something
testify?
this
Would he
morning,
just open up
for
a can
him
of
to
worms?
look
He
the
did this.
judge
He
in
said
the
this.
eye and
It was
again
incredible.
makes a
sure this guy-
preposterous lie that the jury has unanimously rejected, that he didn't do these murders, for that to be the only thing he said. The judge was almost begging him to say something else. When will it end? When will the lies end? I'm surprised, the judge said, that you're not saying something else. And Alec Murdaugh went down again and twice said, I am innocent of these charges, I didn't do it. And listen, the judge then mentioned the opioid addiction. Maybe it turned Alec Murdaugh into another person. I don't actually still know the extent of his opioid use. I find some of what he said about the amount of opioids he took to be almost impossible. But I do know this, opioids
And
are
that he
a
was spending that
scourge
much
on
money
this
on it.
country and continue to be. And this case is an example of that.
Well, I think for all of us who are
But
watching this,
that's
we were
another.
thinking, this is a
You
man
cannot
that
tell me
wanted
somebody
to
spent
take the stand
$50,000
this last week so much,
a
wanted
week
everyone
on
to hear from him,
opiates.
and his last
No,
words
he wasn't
was
taking
that.
to
Everyone
consume
thought that there would
400
be a
pills
little bit more
a
coming,
day.
but it definitely
400? Is that what he was claiming?
Yeah, he
Now
was
we're gonna
claiming
now
like
listen
some
to the
some.
400 pills.
You would
a day,
have
you'd
to
be
be-
dead.
Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for a term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. Under the statute
Look at that
involving
cop behind
possession
him,
of
that
a
guy
weapon during
hates his
violent
guts.
crime, there is no sentence where life,
You think?
a life sentence
I think it might
is
be a good
imposed on
friend
other
of his.
indictments.
Well, every time the judge says something, he shakes his head yes. So.
That is the sentence of the
Maybe
court,
because
and
he's
you are
kept everybody
remanded to the
prisoner
State
in their own
Department
lives
of
in the
Corrections.
states.
And there you have it, the full sentence there, consecutive life sentences for Alec Murdaugh, and that is what Judge Newman said. I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are on what is going to happen next. What do you expect to hear now from these press conferences, Matt?
Well, I think you're going to hear again from the prosecution that they're satisfied, obviously, with the sentence. It's the maximum under the circumstances. The interesting thing is you're going to hear from the defense that they're going to appeal. And that's one of the reasons why Alec Murdaugh had to say today that he's innocent. He couldn't make an admission, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this, because that's going to have an impact on his appeal. So this isn't the last we're going to hear from Murdaugh and his attorneys with regard to this case. This was a long trial. There are going to be issues that are going to be subjected to appellate review. And, the 404 evidence, I think, is going to be a major part of their appeal, should all of those financial crimes have come into this case. So this case is far from over. This isn't the last that we're going to hear from Alec
All right, the
Murdaugh.
mic's back on.
All right. Well, Matt, I'm hearing that there may be a press conference going on right now, so let's send it over to South Carolina and see what's going on.
Everybody give me a thumbs up.
So you've got to get all this stuff done. Next time you got to get, before we go, night before, we got to get all that done. So that's going to be yours.
Oh, what?
Picture, this.
Oh, the thumbnail and stuff?
Yes.
My name is Mark Keel, and I'm Chief of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, otherwise known as SLED.
Oh, it's finally showing.
Local media,
What?
It's finally showing.
you know I don't do very
When you
many
look
press
it up, it's
conferences.
finally showing.
I've been Chief of SLED for
Yes,
12
everybody, I'm
years,
excited because it's our first live
and
stream.
I've only done two.
We're struggle streaming. We're two
The
old
last
queens
one I
trying
did
to
was
get
in
through
June of
this.
21 to talk about significant violent crime that's just been unprecedented in our state. But today it's important for me to speak out. It's important because the victims in this case. It's important because Maggie and Paul cannot. I want to make one thing clear to everybody. There are no winners today. I have a truly humbling responsibility as being Chief of SLED. I lead a dedicated and professional group of investigators, forensic scientists, and support personnel. A staff that work day in and day out for days just like today to bring justice for victims. And today is not the end. It's the next step in a long road to justice for every person who has been victimized by Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh has now been rightfully found guilty of murdering his wife Maggie and Paul. He was found guilty because he was guilty. And as one of the witnesses said, Paul was a little detective. This case serves notice to anyone who aided or assisted Alex Murdaugh in committing any crime that justice will be sought. This was an incredible effort by SLED, our local and federal partners, and our partners at the Attorney General's office. And I want to thank Attorney General Wilson and all of his prosecutors, paralegals, and all of his support personnel as well. They did a fantastic job. The agents and prosecutors who worked this case have sacrificed countless moments from their own families to ensure that a person responsible for the murders of Maggie and Paul was fairly tried and brought to justice. The people who work this case do it because they are called to serve. They do it to bring a voice to the voiceless. And they're dedicated public servants. And for that, I'm grateful. SLED agents have worked tirelessly for the past 21 months to ensure justice was served for Maggie and Paul. It is impossible for most people to understand the countless hours of hard work that went into this case. Time away from families, missed birthdays, missed holidays, and it is all done under constant scrutiny, constant pressure. I want these folks standing behind me and around me to know how incredibly proud I am of them as Chief of SLED. I believe firmly in this criminal justice system that we have, and I believe in the rights of an accused to have a fair trial. That is why I have remained silent from beginning this case until now. Again today, I'm here to provide a voice for Maggie and Paul. I'm here to recognize the heart-wrenching journey that family and friends of Maggie and Paul have endured. And I'm here to support and thank again this incredible team of agents, forensic scientists, support personnel that work at SLED and that worked on this case. Yesterday and today, justice has been served. Thank you.
Yeah, guys, you messed up big time treating him like not a suspect right away. Absolutely devastating. It's absolutely devastating.
Humbling responsibility dealing with this case. Now, keep in mind that the defense had criticized SLED for their mishandling of this case.
Yeah, I did too, and that's why I thought he was going to be innocent because of all the. I'm just glad the jury saw through all the BS that she was trying to sell them.
That's clear, but I don't think today is the day to scrutinize that. And I thought, by the way, in the closing argument, in the rebuttal,
I muted that because that's the second time they're repeating that, but it's
basically by saying Alec Murdaugh has a lot of nerve, having lied about his whereabouts on the night of the murders, having misled the investigators for months and months and months, to have the audacity to criticize law enforcement, which as solicitor he used to work with. I thought the prosecutors handled that brilliantly in closing
for someone that's a lawyer, he sure did a shit job at
it. Some thinking about SLED and the investigation.
someone who's been practicing and was actually a prosecutor's father.
Not for today. Today is for
State's
this verdict and about
was it
the
a
victims.
county
How
solicitor?
did he ever convince anybody of anything?
There are no
I
winners
mean,
in
he's
this.
just
At
such
the
a
end
big
of the
drip.
day,
I know he
people
looks
were
like a
murdered.
big
But
dweeb.
also at the end of the day,
Just,
Matt, I mean,
this
like I
Oompa
said, they
Loompa,
had received
tall,
so much
like
criticism from the
dweeby,
defense. They can sleep a little
it's
bit
like
better
the shoulders
tonight,
are not back. He's not standing up
Well, yeah,
straight.
there certainly
And what does
was,
Pumpkin Boy do for a living? Was he a lawyer too?
legitimate
He
concerns
got
that
kicked
were
out of
raised
law
by the
school, and he's
defense
trying to
cheating.
get back in. Right, he's trying to
Good
get
luck
back
with
in.
that.
Well, I don't know if he
Again,
cheated
this
in
was
law
an
school. I just
unusual
know that he
situation.
got
This
caught
was
for
a well-known
plagiarism, and that's what they
person, an
kicked him
attorney
out for,
who, in fact,
allegedly.
you think at the very
But
outset
from what
is-
I've
is-
read so
is a
far,
victim himself.
and
His
then I
wife
heard the
and his
voice,
son were
the
killed.
calls
So
from
maybe
jail
you're
between him
treating
and his
him a little
father,
differently than
trying
you
to get
might
him back
treated
into
somebody
school.
else, that you
And
may
that
have
was
suspected.
essentially
You know,
pay to
there
play
were
because
some
he
issues
paid
there,
somebody
but there
30
weren't
grand to get
enough
him back
issues,
in.
To convince this
Every time
jury,
they turn around, they're
that
breaking
they
the law
had the
somehow
wrong
or
guy.
another.
The suspect that they had, Alec Murdaugh, was the wrong guy.
What's he hoping?
The
His
jury
kid's
didn't
gonna
believe
finish
it.
law
In
school
fact,
and come
they didn't believe anything. It appears
represent
by
him
the,
and
rapid nature of their deliberations. They didn't believe
Or is
anything.
he gonna
that they heard,
confess that he
from the
helped his
defense in
father
this case.
somehow?
So,
Somebody
yeah,
helped him, I think.
that, they feel some vindication today, and rightfully so.
All right, we're going to hear more from SLED right now. Let's take a listen.
My name is Mark Keel, and I'm chief of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, otherwise known as SLED. For those of y'all in
This
the
is who
local
he
media,
criticized constantly,
you know I don't do very
and
many
he
press
worked
conferences.
with them for like 2 decades.
I've been chief of SLED for 12 years, and I've only done 2.
What does SLED stand for?
South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
Talk about significant violent crime
They're missing the Carolina.
that's
This
just been unprecedented in our state.
is just a better acronym.
But today
SLED.
it's important for me to speak out. It's important because the victims in this case. It's important because Maggie and Paul cannot. I want to make one thing clear to everybody. There are no winners today. I have a truly humbling responsibility as being chief of SLED. I lead a dedicated and professional group of investigators, forensic scientists, and support personnel.
And so is Murdaugh a sled guy?
The staff that work day in
No,
and
but
day
his
out,
grandfather was.
to
I
bring
think his
justice to
father
people.
was.
And why wouldn't he be then?
And today
He
is not
was
the end.
a assistant or
It's the
something
next
like that,
step
and
on
then
the long road
changed his
to
mind because he
justice.
needed
If
money.
you're just
There
joining us
was no
here on
money in
Long
it.
Crime, that's once again.
I'm thinking, yeah, there was, because you had all those state connections. You had all those, all the things you can do.
After everything that has gone on in the past
Yeah, see if
24
any more I
hours.
go
Let's
in.
keep in mind, the defense had criticized them, and speaking of the defense, they are expected to hold a press conference later on
Well, here you
today.
go.
Rich, what do you
What,
expect
when are we
them to
doing
say?
your night?
I think the defense is
Two old
probably going to
queens.
say that they're going to appeal. That would be my expectation. I don't think they'll say a lot. They're certainly
We gotta
will
have some,
criticize the court or the jurors or the
videos
process. I don't think
perhaps
they'll go there at
So
all.
this is annoying because I keep looking at this. We should be looking at this so that we're
Right,
ahead.
right. Well, that's going to take a little bit of time. That's,
About
I don't think
prior
anybody.
bad acts, what we're calling the financial crimes, whether that was appropriate and whether the magnitude of it was inappropriate. So there is a legitimate
You're gonna
appellate
join us
issue
here?
that will
You're gonna
probably
join
end
us
up
here?
being determined, and I suppose they'll point to that.
Well, the judge was very
What's up, puppy dog?
adamant when he, came down with the consecutive life sentences here, Matt.
No,
Do
don't
you
jump
expect
up. Do
anything
not
to
jump up.
change
No, no,
with
no.
it?
Do not jump up. You will
Well,
hit your
I
head
think
and knock
there
everything
is
down.
going to be some close scrutiny by the appellate court with regard to this trial. So this was a weeks and weeks long trial. So there was a lot of evidence. There was a lot of issues that came up. And I think the defense is going to have to thoroughly go through, the trial transcript and formulating the issues that they want to bring up on it. So
Your tail making more noise than we
as
are.
Rick said, there are legitimate issues for appellate review here. Whether it's going to
You
be
look
enough
perfect on that
to
couch. You were
overturn
part of the
this
stream,
verdict
honey.
in order
You were
to
part of the
trial
stream. You're going to be
is something that
famous.
we'll see. But I'm
You
sure
farted
that
again.
The defense is going to
Silent
vigorously
but deadly,
pursue,
honey.
Those issues that
Stop
they
eating
were,
Butter's eggs.
prejudicial to Alec Murdaugh.
Well, I have to ask here, Rich, what are the chances that there will be a new trial?
Small. I don't think an appeal
put
will
real
be
life
successful
stuff in
here.
there
Two
that
problems. One, there was a basis to let in all this evidence on these other crimes because it went to the state's theory of motive, and it did tie to that, and they stuck to that theory from the beginning of the trial to the end. So there was justification for letting it in. Secondly, I believe it might be harmless error because really the crux of the conviction here is Alec Murdaugh lying about where he was right before and right after the murder. And having been caught in that lie and the kennel video.
And how could he be so stupid to not think that somebody was going to catch him in that lie?
But listen, he was methodical in this because a lot of the other stuff he planned so well that he almost got away with
Well,
it.
it will always go back to
The
that kennel
part
video
that
because one of the jurors spoke
gets
out
me is,
today on
why
Good
did
Morning
his kid
America saying
record
that
him?
Alec Murdaugh was a good liar, but he
Why
wasn't
did his
good
kid
enough, and
record him on the
evidence spoke
Snapchat,
for
even if it was like
itself, and when
10
it comes to
seconds?
Who
evidence,
reported him?
Again, that kennel video that
It was
Paul Murdaugh
found
had,
in his
that
son who
the
was
key
dead
right there. All right,
phone.
we do have to,
That's how they
sign
knew
off
he
on
was
Matt
at the
Mangino
kennels.
right now, but, actually,
His son
we
turned
stay
on the
a
video.
half hour
Why?
here,
It's
more
almost
on
as if
crime
he
after
knew
this.
something was coming.
Probably.
Let me make sure. there's
Probably you would know
evidence.
that the guy was like all scornful and
It was gonna cost him millions because of the boat case. It was ruining him because of the boat case. It wasn't anything else. It was just.
he was already in financial shambles.
But I'm telling you, I just don't believe that money is not embezzled somewhere, and they're not touching it because there's the financial investigation that's going to be going on. That's the trial financially. So he's going to be back in court soon for the financial trial. Look at this blue. It's so powerful that I was like, look, if I sit back, look at me. It disappears.
What disappears? What?
Look at my sweatshirt. The blue shows up on it.
Yeah, what made you think you could wear yellow?
Because it was fine before until the blue popped on.
And these colors
Okay,
aren't really
so
seeing what you're seeing on the.
I guess they are doing their thing. I'm baffled by this whole thing, Paul. I really am. I just
Smiley Barbershop.
So this was our first struggle stream, and we're two old queens that are going to try this again soon. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to break down a few other things, probably some of the Netflix documentary. I think that would be good if for those of you who haven't watched it. I would recommend it to everybody. I'm not a big fan of watching, anything that's too gruesome, but that is a really important story for people.
Yeah, I really didn't take a big interest in this because I just thought that it was so heinous and gruesome, and but when you watch the Netflix, it really helps summarize it quickly for you and bring you up to speed on it. And then watching the trial itself, you can just. There's so much footage on this. There's footage of them on the boat. There's footage of everything. Everybody was always shooting something.
Yeah, for me, it's that they had this great life as a family. But when I saw the documentary and I saw all these videos of the parents on the boat drinking with not just their own kids, but their friends.
Right.
And having no issue with it. And Paul was all but 16 at that time in those videos. And it's like 16, 17, 18. They're showing him before he's 21. Before any of them are 21. And the parents are just not doing their job.
No, there's a reason that you shouldn't be drinking constantly when you're a kid. Most kids do go out there and they'll drink, but they'll do it once, in a blue moon or something like that. The ones that are drinking every weekend tend to be alcoholics at a young age and tend to screw up their lives. And for you to sit there and sponsor your children to do something like that,
that's it. If you want to go down that road, go ahead. But you should not. Your kids should not have been anywhere near that. Because kids emulate what their parents do.
And they should be behind a wheel, and they shouldn't be, if you're going to let them drink, you got to monitor them. But they didn't monitor them at all.
Yeah, but you can't let them drink and then have their friends drink and then show up at...
No, it's illegal.
No, it's
but
just...
they were so privileged and so in control of the town. This is a pretty good... This is not... The sad part is this is not... isolated incidents. This is something that rich people do all the time.
This family has 5 bodies from 2015, was it, till now, or 2018?
Who's the first one?
Stephen Smith, the young gay student that allegedly Buster was having a relationship with. They were in love, according to everybody who gave statements. That's what the documentary said. But, we'll never know. But the last person to see him alive, his car ran out of gas on the road. He called Buster. Buster showed up with his brother. And then all of a sudden, Stephen is dead in the road with a head wound, but no trauma to the body, as if it were a car accident, right?
Right.
Because when you get hit by a car and you get a head wound, you also get a lot of other wounds. This had nothing other than a big...
So they broke up, and then Buster decided
I don't know.
to off him?
I don't know if the brother and him did it, if he did it. I don't know. But they reopened the case. Through all of this, they've reopened it. So SLED is now reinvestigating that.
Wow.
Which is, that in itself is like... And then, of course, the housekeeper. Let's not forget a woman who worked for them for 20 years, knew too many secrets. And then when you hear the wife, even, when I listen to Maggie in the few videos they showed, but in that particular call, she is so, like, aloof, like, nothing, no big deal. The woman fell. She's, she's all right a little bit, but maybe not. I don't know. And it was like one of those calls. I'm like, if somebody fell on my stairs and busted their head, I'd be screaming for holy hell, get an ambulance here.
Uh-huh.
So,
No,
I don't know.
Get the family here so we can clean up the mess.
And that's what it was. It was everybody else there except the ambulance. And then, remember, the part where they said it was a fall. She died from a fall. But in the death certificate, one of the coroners, or somebody in the department put natural causes. And when the coroner saw that, she said, no, you can't have natural causes when somebody fell.
An accident.
Somebody fell and hit their head, and you're going to say natural causes.
She hit her head on the banister, and so that's a natural cause. You naturally die when your head is smashed in.
And then you've got the boat accident to top it all off, so that's 3 bodies. And then you've got the mother and the son now. That's 5 bodies tied to this family. Can we stop pretending like it's something great?
You're never going to learn how to do
It's
this.
clear for you to go. And he said, don't go until,
This
until
is his
okay."
brother,
And he
John
called me back
Mark.
a few minutes later and said he had spoken to,
How come he's
I
not?
believe it was Captain Ryan Neal, and had given the,
He is.
the okay.
He matches the
everything was
jumpsuit
released,
better.
and it was okay to go there.
And was it cleaned up?
No, Jim, it was not cleaned up.
They're talking about so this is the part that got me. So, skull fragments or whatever from Paul's brains being blown out was still there. They were upset that the police didn't clean the crime scene. Police doesn't clean the crime scene.
I could easily
It's a
see where
special
Maggie had been. I saw her the night
third-party
before where the
company
sheets
that
were.
comes
Right.
out in
But
suits
somebody had told me
and
that
washes
it
and
was doing-
chemicals and
So I could see where
Pick
Maggie
up
did.
everything forever.
yes, and not just evidence, but they clean it up for the family so they don't have to go through that torturous
Oh, so the
process.
family was saying they cleaned it up because the police
Yeah,
didn't clean it up?
his brother cleaned up the crime
Walked
scene.
over to the feed room, and y'all have heard the descriptions. Y'all saw it. I've never seen pictures, and I've told them before coming to this court that I was not going to see pictures. But y'all can imagine what I experienced. It had not been cleaned up. I saw blood. I saw brains. I saw pieces of skull. And when I say brains, it could just be tissue. I don't know what I was seeing. It was terrible.
He was more emotional than the father was.
And for some reason, I thought it was something that I needed to do for Paul to clean it up. Felt like it was the right thing to do,
And these are all lawyers, but that feels
like
like the
I
right
owed
thing to
him.
do. Nobody knows about the
and I
law.
started cleaning.
That's my
You know,
job.
they have no excuse for
No
ignorance.
father
No.
and uncle
Ignorance is bliss.
should ever have to see and do what I did that
Well,
day.
nobody ever has an excuse for ignorance, but
I don't
for
know
these
what-
people to say, "Oh, I thought I
not
stood
blaming
for my
anybody,
brother
but
and
it's
for my
just-
nephew."
I was just overwhelmed. I did everything I
Yeah.
could. And I would have moments where I would...
Tell us about when you took the guns out of the back of the truck. What was that about?
And just,
That was on a regular basis.
just in disbelief. At one point, I
I'm not a
called
lawyer. I
my
just
brother
clean up the scenes.
and told him what I
Did a
was
horrible
doing, trying
job.
to describe what I was doing, and he immediately told me to stop doing it. It was not good for me. It was not healthy for me to be there. And
Oh, that's the reason they told him to stop.
I just...
I
had to
couldn't
do it
stop.
all. That's just
I couldn't
what I had
stop.
to do.
Because you wanted to clean up the
Sitting
crime
with you,
scene.
Rick Schoenstein, in this very seat when John Marvin took the stand a few days ago, and he was very emotional, as you just saw, talking about cleaning up after the murders. How do you think the jury ultimately took his testimony and held their decision?
That he helped clean up the
This was
crime scene.
heartbreaking testimony. This was by far the best witness the defense put on.
And that's the best they could do.
Very wise of them, strategically, to put him on last. He was their cleanup batter, so to speak, and he was raw and
That's what he did for a living,
emotional
cleaned
and
up.
Spoke from the heart. And I think maybe that affected the
And nobody
jurors,
was
but,
buying
he
it.
couldn't really say anything that proved Alec Murdaugh's innocence.
This is
He didn't offer an
heartbreaking.
alibi. He never really came right out and said, I don't think he did it. He didn't offer facts that differed from what the jury had heard about the night. He didn't have an explanation for Alec Murdaugh's lies about where he was immediately before and immediately after the murder. He didn't have other suspects who might have committed these killings beside Alec Murdaugh. So, great witness, really emotional, and probably resonated for the jury. And my heart goes out to him and the people in his family who were damaged by what Alec Murdaugh did, but he couldn't establish a defense.
Yeah, a family that will forever be broken now. And Matt, what do you think John Marvin is thinking now that his brother has been convicted? Do you think he truly believes in his brother's innocence, or was that all a show?
Thing about this testimony is how many people have been impacted by this case and by these murders. Family and friends and so many people that were led astray by Alec Murdaugh. So, he's a smart guy. He certainly came across as someone who has thought about this and has really been hit by this whole act. He sat there, he listened to the testimony. I mean, he has to, I would assume, either conclude what the jury concluded or continue to deceive himself that his brother's not capable of doing something like this. But as you said, he doesn't point out any alibi. He doesn't say, hey, my brother was incapable of doing this. He just says what a horrific incident it was and how it impacted him, and I'm sure many others.
Well, John Marvin was also the person to find Victim Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone. Let's hear what he had to say about that.
Next.
Mark basically got me. I'm sure I was just a basket case, but he got me back to the house and, got me back around family and, just got back to, the support of others that were there. And there were a lot of people at the house at that point.
Wow.
Do you remember when you got back to the house at some point in time?
Like how they called him the cleanup guy.
Raising questions or bringing up the fact that Maggie's phone had not been located?
Yeah, so there were, particular the lawyers, they were all, being lawyers, they were,
We wouldn't even owed it to Alex.
things amongst themselves and, how could this happen, trying to figure things out. But it was brought to my attention that
The
Maggie's
lawyers
phone
were
was
talking
not there,
amongst themselves.
and that law enforcement had not found it. And I can't say that
The amount of
and
callousness that comes
I could
from
probably
this
say
family
that
is
I didn't think of it because I'm
tragic.
not a big phone user or a big app user or whatnot. But somebody brought to my attention and says, listen, if Buster or Alec, if they have an app on their phone, like Find My Phone or Find My Friends or an app like that, they said you very likely can find out where the phone is if the battery's not dead. And so I went to Buster and sure enough, I said, Buster, do you have this one of these apps like they're talking about? And he said, yeah, sure I do. I said, well, open it up. He opened it up and he handed me the phone and I see Maggie's name and I press it where, to activate it, and it pings Maggie's phone just out front of the property. And I was like, I hate to say it, but I said, holy shit, there it is. And I said, Buster, I'm taking your phone. I'm going to go back down to the shed and show it to law enforcement.
And who did you approach first about the phone?
Well, I don't know who it was.
So let me understand this
Presumably
correctly.
it was
He was
SLED
cleaning
agents,
up the
'cause keep in
crime scene
mind,
while the police were
I didn't
still
know any of
there.
these guys with SLED. I mean, there were a couple of faces that I
This family is fishy.
I don't know these guys.
I hope it's their downfall because they weren't humble.
So I went up
They
to
weren't
the
kind.
SLED agent or two SLED agents and said, presumably SLED agents, and said, hey, I've got Buster's phone here,
Arrogant.
and it's got an app on it that can find the phone. And it's
Wife
showing
was
Maggie's
just as
phone
bad
right
as the
out here.
husband.
Let's y'all want to let's go
pushing the
get
maid
it?
down the stairs. They said that she might have been pushed.
And he said,
Probably.
That was
we have
questionable.
technology coming later today.
'Cause she knew too
that
much.
We should be able to find it. And it blew
And
me
Paul
away.
knew too much.
I'm sitting here showing them where Maggie's phone is, but they won't take the time to walk with me or take this phone itself. I mean, I'd give them the phone to go find it. So I walk over, I knew Duffy Stone, he was the solicitor, I knew one of his investigators. I walked over to them, said the exact same thing, and they immediately said, absolutely, let's go find this thing before the battery goes dead.
And
Maggie's the
what
wife.
happened?
Yes.
But we did that.
And
Well, we started walking down the back
So
entrance,
I
or the
think
kennel entrance,
what
if you
did
will.
for them was
And
the
as we were-
phone
at
data,
that time,
because
the agent was holding the phone. You know, I'm looking at it with him.
from the
And
breakdown that I got
when it
was
pings, it creates a dot or location.
after the murder.
And that dot
After
jumped from
the
right
phone
into
was
that
locked
road
and
down the road. I don't know,
she
maybe
was
a half
dead.
a mile, 3/4 of a mile.
The phone walked
And so we walked
53
back,
steps.
got into a car,
And then
drove down to where it was.
got into
it was
a
showing the
car.
phone.
and then threw it out by
And
the
I
house.
rode with
The
those
only
agents,
person who
the
left that
solicitor's
property was
office
him.
agents.
Was the phone ultimately located on the side of the road?
Alex was
Absolutely,
the
we
only
found it
person
in a
who.
matter of minutes.
No way. The property you
You
would have
remember how
to
it
know
was
the
collected?
property. You would have to know there's not cameras there. You would
I
have
was,
to know.
So I was on.
The property's very, very dark,
cow
and it's
pasture
down a
on one side and there's
freaking
wood
road.
on the
Right,
other
right,
side.
yeah.
Past
So
all
I
these
was,
trees where you
cow pasture
can't
on, if
You don't
see
know the
it.
house is back
I
there.
heard him
Right,
say,
and when
"I
yesterday
got
when
it."
I saw the
And
drone
so,
shots
you know,
of it,
I walked back beside
I
his
said, "Oh
car.
my God!" I
You
said,
know,
"This is." I
good
said,
ways
"From the
it. I
house,
see him over there.
the shed
I think
and
he
the
took
and
either some ribbon or some
dog
flagging,
kennels
you know,
were very
flagging
far."
tape, and marked the phone.
So, and there was no
And I don't
light.
think he touched
So
it.
you've
I
got
think
this
he
long
left it right where
road,
it
you've got
was.
the house,
Called
and then
SLED, maybe at
behind
time,
that,
maybe they had been
few hundred
communicating, but
feet,
SLED had
you've
gone off
got the
road at
kennels
this
and
point,
and
and one
the
of the
little
agents
cabin.
came up
So
and picked the
it's
phone
not.
up. And I don't
It would
know
be
which
hard to
agent.
hear anything from the house, let
What
alone
was interesting here was
anywhere
why
else.
would
You would
someone who
have to
Martin
know
thought was a
that
SLED
property
agent
to do that.
disregard his
Right.
first attempt to find
Because
Maggie?
nobody doesn't
Why
know
would
what's
her
going
phone
on.
be so far off of?
Well,
Well,
crime
because
scene.
they're saying the killer
point,
took
but-
her
but
phone
I
and
think,
threw it. And the
you know,
killer,
it's
yeah,
much ado
her
about
husband.
That's also
I mean,
reckless.
certainly, you have a number of.
I don't have
Such
to
a-
say allegedly because he was
number of
convicted,
other,
but my
law
God, I
enforcement
can't.
agents there.
The whole family, look,
You know, they're all
at
going to
some
be
point,
trying to act
you've
in
got to
unison,
cut the
but they
cancer
don't
out,
necessarily
right?
do that.
And he
Sometimes
was a
it's,
cancer on
you know,
this family.
one particular
His
department
kids,
is thinking
he
one
was,
thing and
he
another
should have been
department is
cut off
thinking another.
financially. He should have been
You know,
cut
he
off
may
from
have
the
been told,
family,
hey, you know,
cut
we're
off from the
bringing this up
connections,
and don't anybody,
and maybe,
you know, leave the
maybe
area,
he
right
and the
now.
kids
There's
and the
just a
family would be
whole lot
okay and
of
alive
things there,
today.
and I don't think that it
But
had,
I wouldn't be
much of
surprised
an
if
impact.
Randolph
If
didn't
any,
get
you
in
know,
trouble for being an accessory to crime.
Listen, Randolph died 2 or 3 days after Maggie. He was 90 something. So their grandfather was old as dirt. And he was already dealing with hospice at the time.
I just don't think it's
Yeah, I just think, you know, like in any other house or in any other family,
was huge in this trial.
90% of the
After all
time,
testimony that we
parents
heard,
are going to take
how big
everything
was
away from
that
you to
in the
punish you.
forefront of this trial?
They're not going to give you things.
The prominence
His
of the
car
cell
should have been
phone,
taken. His
the
damn
cell
boat
phones
should have
in
been
this
taken.
trial.
His guns should have been
Think
taken.
about it.
Everything
We
that
had
that child
people
loved should have
call
been
cell
taken when he
phone,
was
get the
acting
camera
out.
video.
But
We had to find
why was he
Maggie's
acting
cell
out? Look at
phone
his
and
parents.
tie
Look at
that
the
to Alec
example.
Murdaugh's travels
Dad
down.
an alcoholic
And then
and
we had to get Alec Murdaugh's
allegedly a drug
See
user,
the
because I'm not even
steps
going to
he
say he
took
was a
in
drug
sudden
user,
flurry of
because
activity.
no way that somebody
Those
do
cell
400
phones tell
opiates
you
a day and
who
fucking
was
live to
there
tell
and
about
when,
it.
the
I don't care
steps
what he
they
says.
took,
He embezzled the
how they
money in
traveled.
somewhere.
We think of cell phones as communication devices, but
He
they're
hid
really
his money
surveillance
for
devices
some
in the
reason. He
modern
was
world.
hiding it, maybe.
And
Oh, and his
without
wife
the
went to
cell
see a
phone
divorce
data
lawyer.
That was in evidence in this
Oh, really?
trial,
Yeah.
there would have been a conviction.
Well, it was certainly a game changer.
So don't tell me your wife is going to see a
One of the
divorce
key
lawyer in
pieces
your.
of evidence is what you mentioned, Paul Murdaugh getting that kennel video, and of course, it was on the cell phone. All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Law and Crime, but much more to do here, covering the trial of Alec Murdaugh.
Don't touch
Stay with us.
any of that. Kurwa, I'm gonna tell you, mój mąż ci wpierdoli. Don't touch that. It's that. Don't touch anything here. My God, this man will kill me. You will be the death of me. As my mother would tell me all the time. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Oh, we got another trial going on. Obsessed boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. What? Murder trial. Oh my God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have not been following this one, but that doesn't mean we can't. I'll have to learn about this one a little bit more. Wait. Oh God, that looks so weird. Oh, now you can see the couch. Did I not get it to the right point? I like how your head is cut off when you're back there. This is another trial they've got going on.
Was this muted or what?
No. This is just about to start. I don't think the judges come out, so they're quiet.
They don't tell you what trial it is?
They do. I just am not familiar with it. It's an ex-boyfriend murder trial, Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson. So I'll have to tag that under the description.
All right, let's do a wrap because I got stuff I want to do. Thank you for watching Trainwreck Entertainment TV.
And he is a train
My name's
wreck.
Paolo Apollo, and this is my friend and accomplice,
Partner in crime.
K-drama queen, alias, what? You're not doing that name? What?
I am Polish Lucy.
Oh, you're Polish Lucy on this station. Okay. We have another station that'll be coming up.
Thank you for watching. Pardon him because he's got issues. Not that I don't. I'm a little cray-cray. I'm still stunned at the verdict. So I will review this new trial, and I will be back with this on Monday. Thank you so much. Welcome. And this is my first struggle stream. Oh, shout out to the lead attorney who inspired me to do this. And also Perry Sanders, Sherelle's a World, Abba and Preach. Oh my God, I love those guys. I think that's my favorite channel. Oh my God, I can't think of all the stuff I watch, and I watch so many. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to shout you out on the next one because all of you are the reason I actually did this. And not perfect, but we're going to get there. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.